Hi, sixth grade. So we are going to dive into lesson 5 today. In this, you will find your PowerPoint notes, the actual notes that I would normally project on the screen in my classroom, as well as your digital workbook for lesson 5. So you might want to have this open as I go through this video if you want to. Otherwise, you can watch the video at your leisure. You can pause, whatever you want to do. So we are going to talk about how to divide the Earth into regions. We talked in the last unit about the Mr. Help and how the R stands for region, and it is a way to easily break up a larger part of our world into a smaller part where things make sense, have a little bit more in common, and we can easily study them a little bit better. So that's what we're going to do today. The questions here that I have for lesson number 5 are the same as you would have gotten if you had a paper notebook or workbook to write in during my class. The only thing is you have to type them. If you get lost while you're following along with me or can't remember where this part is, for each question, I have written in the question where you should be looking for slides-wise to help you figure that answer out. If there are no slides given, I usually put in your own opinion. So that means that you don't need a slide. It's a your opinion question based on the information I've already previously given you. There is some matching, multiple choice, etc., and so forth. All right. So let's get back to our PowerPoint and start our presentation. So we are going to talk about how to divide the Earth into different regions. All right. So I'm trying to figure out where to best put myself or to make myself smaller because I can't make myself smaller. What do I need to do? Am I making you dizzy yet? All right, we'll just stick me in the corner. Okay, so a region, by definition, is an area with at least one characteristic or feature that sets it apart from other areas. So let's take a look at an example. All right. So Michigan is a very special state because it can easily be divided into 2 regions, but it's still the same state. So if we look at Michigan, which is in yellow, we can actually divide Michigan into 2 different peninsulas. We have the upper peninsula up here and the lower peninsula where we are. So that is a way that we can regionalize or divide Michigan to split it up and make it smaller groups and find things that they have in common. Because I'm sure if you've been to the Upper Peninsula, you'll notice that things are a little bit different up there as far as the region and lifestyles than they are where we live in the Southern Hemisphere, or the Lower Peninsula, excuse me. I don't know why I just said hemisphere. Probably because we're going to talk about hemispheres. Now that you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about when I say we're going to divide into regions, let's take a look at how to divide the United States into regions. There's a couple different examples about ways you can divide the United States into regions. So we can divide the United States into regions based on direction. So if you look at this map here, we have our cardinal directions. We have north, south, east, and west. And we even have some intermediate directions such as northeast, southeast, southwest. So based on where they are located direction-wise in the United States, we can categorize by direction. So we have west, southwest, midwest where we are, southeast, and northeast. So we have direction. Same with this one. This gets a little bit more specific. We tend to use this one. This is a little bit more detailed because now you've got Pacific West because it's near the Pacific Ocean. And then you've got the West and Central and Mid-South and Midwest. And this is just too busy. So we focus on this one. But I use this one as an example because some people like to get super specific and super regionalized and even make them smaller. This is what I'm sure you guys can all relate to. And we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about lines of latitude and longitude. We can divide our the United States by region based on our climate. So as you can see, it's color-coded, and each color stands for a different type of climate. The blue obviously means cooler, so that makes a little bit of sense. We've got Minnesota, and even our upper peninsula here for Michigan is cooler. They do have cooler temperatures because as you go up, as you go more north, the temperature gets a little bit cooler. Same with Alaska here. Down here, we have the hot arid. Hot arid means hot, dry. So think desert. All right. So that's why we've got Arizona, parts of California, parts of Texas. That's that hot, dry climate where they see very little rain and it's very desert-like. Then you have hot, humid. These are like your tropical locations where it's hot, but there's moisture in the air. So think Florida, think Hawaii, think islands and beaches and stuff like that. Not for all the states, but most. I'm just trying to make you understand the difference between humid and arid. And then you have us, where we have a temperate climate. Temperate is a fancy word for we get all 4 seasons. And since we live in Michigan, sometimes it's all in one day. So we can divide our United States into a region based on climate. This one is by time zone. So as you can see, the United States is actually divided into 6 different time zones. It can't be the same time every place in the world based on the sun's rotation and when it's bright outside versus not bright outside and it's nighttime. So everyone is set off by about an hour. So if you look at the continental United States, which is the bigger one right here, there are 4 major time zones. So if you've ever heard on a TV show, it's going to start at 6 p.m., 5 Central. It's because they're airing in 2 different time zones, and Central is usually an hour behind. We live in the Eastern time zone, so that means that we are this block of time here. Central is an hour behind us. Mountain time is 2 hours behind that, and the Pacific is 3 hours behind that. So right now it is 9:37 at night, which actually means in California it is 6:37 at night. In Texas, they are only an hour behind, so it is 8:37. And in Utah, they are 2 hours behind, so it is 8:37. Fun, huh? If you look down here, Alaska and Hawaii, based on their location, because they are so west of us, they are in their own time zones. So Alaska is actually another hour behind California in this area, and Hawaii is actually another hour behind Alaska. That, all right? This is going to be one of your questions on your notes. In your own opinion, what map do you believe shows the best way to divide the Earth into regions? And since you guys know me so well, I always ask, and why? So it's a 2-part question, always a 2-part question. Now, here we are going to do a little bit of review. We talked about this during lines of latitude and longitude. So we are going to look at our northern and our southern hemispheres. So here is where the northern hemisphere is. Again, remember we have our imaginary line that goes across the Earth like a belt, latitude, fatitude. All right. So you've got the imaginary line of the equator going around your waist like a belt. Above it is northern, below it is southern. So here is a picture of the northern hemisphere. Here's the United States with Canada, Mexico, and then we see Asia, parts of Africa, etc. Then the southern hemisphere is below the belt, and here's the southern hemisphere where you can see the bottom of Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, etc. Now, here's a question for you. Can a country be both in the northern and southern hemispheres? Can a country border that equator and actually be in both equators? Why or why not? Here are all the countries that border the equator. So at some point, that country crosses that line and it becomes a special country where it can be in 2 hemispheres at the same time. So we actually have 13 that fall into that category. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so we're going to go, did I do it? Yeah, I did. All right, so here we are going to talk about the other hemispheres. So we've got northern and southern, and we got to talk about our east and west. All right, remember that imaginary line that splits somebody in half down the center of their body is called the Prime Meridian. On the left-hand side, we have the Western Hemisphere, and on the right side, we have the Eastern Hemisphere. Again, Prime Meridian being that imaginary line at 0, dividing and conquering between the two. Now, if here is 0, I don't know why I'm pointing to my computer. You can't see that. Here is the 0 line. Okay, remember these lines extend all the way around our sphere Earth, okay? So all these lines go around it like a big ball. So if I was to follow this line all the way around to the other side, I would do a 180. And that would mean that they shift. So if I was to do a flat map, this is actually the left side and this is actually the right side. But depending on how you spin the globe, you can see both at the same time. Question for you on your notes. Is the United States in the Eastern or the Western Hemisphere? If we look here, this says Eastern Hemisphere up here where Russia is. United States, Western Hemisphere, baby. Now, here are the countries that are that special category again that border both hemispheres, the Eastern and the Westerns. Not as many as the other one, but they're still pretty recognizable. So we have the United Kingdom, France, Spain, Algeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Ghana. So all of those border the Eastern and Western hemispheres and are actually in both. This is a very special country, and I'm not going to give it away too much, but I want you to think about what we've just been talking about, all 4 hemispheres and countries overlapping those imaginary lines. What is special about the country of Kiribati? Kiribati is this UEW-shaped country right here that I'm circling with my pointer that has the orange label. So I want you to look really closely at this map and answer the question into your notes. What is so special about the country of Kiribati? Last part of our notes. One of our vocabulary words for this lesson is continent. Now, I know you're all like, oh, I know what a continent is. We have the continent competition. There's this many of them, blah, blah, blah. Well, by definition now, by social studies standards, a continent is a large, unbroken landmass surrounded by water. What that essentially means is it is a piece of land that has no separation from anything, and it is surrounded by water. Okay? Here is a question for you. This is a 2-part question in your notes. How many continents are there? And considering I had a continent competition every month, you should know the answer to this. And you should be able to name them. So make sure that you go and do that in your notes. How many continents do we have? And the names of the continents. And if you've forgotten, you can pause the video right here and write them all down. But I want to take a look at 3 specific continents because we are talking about this concept, this vocabulary word, that a continent is a large, unbroken landmass surrounded by water. So we're going to talk about 3 separate continents real quick, and I want to pick your brain real quick and see what you think after learning about this vocabulary word. So first, we're going to look at Europe. Here is a close-up picture of Europe. As you can see, we have Africa below and we have Asia over here, and Europe is this dark brownie type stuff. But they're questioning, is Europe really a large, unbroken landmass surrounded by water? So I want you to take in this picture and look around and think about that definition and answer the question in your notes. Is Europe a continent? Why or why not? In your opinion. Now I want to take a look at North and South America where we live. Okay? Two separate continents, right? Or not. If you look at this blue picture of North and South America, do you see a break where it separates north from south? So again, I propose to you this question. Should North and South America be separate continents? Why or why not? Lastly, Antarctica. Oh, Antarctica, we've had some fun with you. We've looked at so many maps and how different cartographers have portrayed you or left you out or drawn you so big. We're going to wrap up our PowerPoint with you. So Antarctica, you get to finish the show. So Antarctica is this giant ice cube, essentially, okay? This is a tundra. This has glaciers. Think of all those things that we talked about in landforms last lesson where we're talking about glaciers, if you picked that. Think about what Antarctica might look like without ice. Is it an unbroken landmass or is it ice-capped group of islands? This yellow, long, somewhat looking connected piece of land now just became this. This is what it looks like when you look at the South Pole from a three-dimensional point of view. So your final question for your notes is Antarctica a continent by this definition? Why or why not, in your opinion? Well, I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into what we are going to be doing for this lesson. We are talking about how to chunk out our world. We started small. We talked a little bit about Michigan and the United States and then broke it out into the world. Stay tuned for what this week brings, and I will see you all soon. Take care.